every one.
No,
Every
so
one.
it don't matter.
We counted the first boxes.
Nine o'clock, I'll call a special meeting, of the Benton County Board of Commissioners to order with the flag pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call, Beth?
Sure. Commissioner Benoit. Here. Commissioner Heinen.
Here.
Commissioner Pop.
Here.
Commissioner Johnson.
Here.
Commissioner Gopinski.
Here.
Thank you.
County Administrator Monty Headley.
Mr. Chair, the first item is Pete, Philippi from Contegrity, and then with Evan's assistance, we'll take you through the bids and also the alternates. And I think looking for some decisions from you this morning on which alternates you will accept or not accept. So that's the process, I believe. Pete?
Good morning, Commissioners.
Good morning.
Pete Philippi, Contegrity Group. I have two spreadsheets in front of you. One is an overall tally with the low bids with a spread of the alternates across the top. And the second one, and the reason I printed the second one, is if alternate H2, which is a mechanical one highlighted in green, changes, it jumps over to a different contractor. So we have a separate spreadsheet for that. With that being said, the contractors tallied have been called and comfortable with their numbers, and therefore we are recommending bids with the proper selection of alternates. So from there, I probably want to turn it over to Evan to maybe walk and talk these alternates through conjointly and kind of go through the pricing and see what alternates are to be selected. So with that being said, alternates that we do have, the 10 alternates. First one is alternate A1, which is provide linear ceiling metal planks. That was fairly limited to the entrance, the overhang on the outside, and the lobby. Currently, we have a metal panel ceiling, metal soffit ceiling on the exterior canopy, gypboard ceiling in the foyer vestibule area, and then we transferred to a ceiling tile immediately when you walk in. The price upgrade on that change would be $49,425. Alternate A2 is to provide manufactured stone veneer on the outside in lieu of the real stone. That alternate number has been identified as a savings of $92,000 if you follow at the bottom of that sheet. Alternate A3 is to provide security glazing, glass type 3B at selected counters in the lobby portion when you walk in. That price is an add of $10,500. Alternate A4 was a pergola that was on the south side of the building, one of the entrances. That alternate was an add of $27,250. Alternate A5 was to provide some framed walls up on second floor. To do that with the openings in it was $13,550. We had an alternate for a poured foundation in lieu of concrete block, concrete masonry units. Alternate A6, there was a credit amount or a deduct amount of $47,926. Alternate then P1 is a mechanical alternate. It would be the cost for not using PEX piping. That would be an add of $17,260. Alternate H1 is the one where it changes to the different spreadsheet, which is some roof screens around the rooftop units. That would be an add of $117,000 plus an increase in contract price because the contractor would change from McDowell over to Wiedner for an additional $2,600. So, and then alternate H3, we put down a 0. The low control contractor that we show in the base bid is St. Cloud Refrigeration at a $199,900, which basically a continuation of your current control system that you have in place in your other buildings. So with that, we identified a 0 cost. Any questions on any of the alternates? I'm sorry, did I skip over the snow melt system?
Yes.
Yes, I'm sorry, the snow melt system H1, which would put snow melt system on your front entrance coming into the government center, along with the doors and steps on the east side of the building, was $107,400. That would be an additional amount. Sorry about that.
Questions?
I think that snow melt was actually included in that one before the alternate P1, the PEX piping, because you had said it was like 117,000.
Yeah, P1 was 17,260, and what that is the PEX piping within the building. So the contractor right now currently has the option of using PEX piping in lieu of copper piping for maybe some of the interior runouts, maybe some of the bathroom sets that we're seeing being used more predominantly in commercial construction than we had 15, 20 years ago. I take it with that price, we're probably looking at the small diameter pipes, the snow melt system. Once again, that would be a PEX in-floor system located on the exterior of the building. And that snow melt system, once again, is to the front entrance and the east set of steps. Entrance coming in from the east side, $107,400. Evan, anything you want to add to this?
I was going to say, if you wanted me to walk through any of the details of any of the specifics, that'd be fine. Maybe one of them that might not be obvious is alternate A5, the framed walls. That was at the second floor where we had that secure area in human services. We had the option for drywall walls versus a furniture wall solution in that area. So that furniture wall solution would be a little more reconfigurable down the road, so you could detach it and add on and move. Sometimes that doesn't happen in the future, so it is a little less expensive to do the framed walls now, but if you have to expand or change that secure area on the second floor, then you would have more construction work, drywall work, that sort of thing. So it's a trade-off on that front. The alternate A1 is at the front entry area that Pete said. It's like a metal plank ceiling versus a regular suspended ceiling like that's above you right here. Just at entries, it's nice heavier ceiling. It doesn't move, that sort of thing. There is an aesthetic factor to that too. It carries from the outside. Alternate A2 on the stone veneer, that's effectively going to a CMU versus a real stone. So for the life of the building, the real stone's going to perform better. The one thing about CMU, they're a little more porous. You'll see more of the, dark spots. You get a little staining, that sort of thing over time. But in this case, we wanted to provide the alternate. But for that particular one, I'd argue for the life of the building, that's a very good move on the real stone. Perform better over time, just from a maintenance durability standpoint. That security glazing alternate 3. We have glass at the public interaction spaces now. It's 1/4-inch tempered glass. This would upgrade that to a thicker laminated glass. It has got a small caliber bullet resistance, but it would more stay together versus just shatter into a bunch of tiny pieces. So that lamination keeps it together. So that's that's what that one is. Alternate A4, that pergola really was the outside area off of the employee area is south facing with the sun cruising right around, so it was a bit of a shading device over there. So that's an item that can be added quite easily down the road, so, if you chose to leave that one off the table, that's something that could be done. It's completely separate outside the building as a sunshade. The alternate A6, we just have one contractor that specializes in this poured wall system that has insulation in between the two Weiss. So we have CMU with insulation and then CMU, and they propose doing a poured system. It's called Thermomass. Oftentimes is more money, but they do a good job with it. They kind of specialize in that, so they were able to realize a savings. In fact, we kind of added that alternate during bidding to allow for that. So I'll add rooftop screens. If Jeff were speaking to it, he would say they're a little more maintenance because you have to remove some screens potentially or open them up to get to maintain the items. But the flip side is the building does sit a little bit low, where we're sitting. When you're on the high side of the site, you're going to see those units a little more. So that's a judgment call on your part. And there can be, that's an easy item that can be adjusted down the road. Like if you go through construction, contingency is really good, and you get the building kind of roughed in and you see some areas that you think that screen should be, that's something you can, as long as it's set up to do so, add those.
Mr. Chair.
Yes.
So that screen can be added on at any given time, though?
I believe so.
We don't have to do it right away. That gets mounted on the units, I believe,
Correct.
correct?
They're mounted on the unit versus like curbs or something that penetrates the roof. We're trying not to penetrate the roof. They're built onto the unit itself. I could point to some examples in town that look like that. So, but again, I'll just reinforce there can be a little more access for maintenance. So if you're strictly got your maintenance hat on, you would say no. But if you've got, you're balancing the both, you might want them. So, but that's something I think you could make the selection right now based on low bid contractor. That alternate does, as Pete said, switch low bid contractor. So, but if it's something you want to do, then for sure, then we could go ahead and do that.
So, Mr. Chair, how about this? Perhaps we just take each alt one by one and kind of get a consensus of whether it's thumbs up or thumbs down on each alt, and arrive at a new bottom line, and based upon what you accept or don't accept.
So you want to start with A1?
Please, sir. Yes. Yeah. How about just start with alt one?
Mr. Chair, what options do we have other than what's in front of us for that alternate? Okay, you said that the metal planking outside, because it's the outside vestibule, correct? That ceiling. Okay, and we would not put a suspended ceiling or anything there. We have to have something to sustain the weather.
Yeah, we could just walk it through. So we on the outside of the building would remain the metal plank because it would be the exterior rated material on the outside. It'd be once we enter the vestibule, so between the two vestibule doors, the one would switch to a drywall ceiling to keep that solid versus we would just keep the metal plank going through in that case. And then there's that section right in front of the DMV entrance. So just that small section, just in front of the lobby, what am I trying to say? The reception person, the front station up there, kind of that small area would also be the same ceiling. So from the outside to the vestibule to that first chunk just before the DMV area would be the same ceiling instead of switching 3 different types. So.
And then all the questions you got for A1?
Yeah. that's all I have.
A2 was,
Oh,
go ahead.
I think what Monty was saying, they want to give a,
Kind of need a thumbs up or thumbs down, right, on each alt, if we could. Yeah.
I don't know.
Mr. Chair, I was trying to look on the numbers here, Pete or Evan. Did you include anything that showed if all the alts were accepted with their addition and subtractions, what that total would be?
I have the number for you. It's if you take all the ones, and let's just set aside the screens for the moment, it adds 85,000 to the bottom line.
If we accept all the
alternates.
deductions and,
So
okay.
increases and decreases, right? 85,459. That's the change in the bottom line. And again, that's not addressing the screens. I kind of get the impression we're going to let the screens go. Is that fair? Yeah.
Excuse me?
Is it fair to say we're going to let the screens go for now? Is that
It's
fair to
only
say?
my opinion.
Yeah. So focusing on the page that doesn't have the screens on it. Yeah, again, the net is 85,459.
Yeah.
I mean, truthfully, some of the stuff I don't have much knowledge about.
Right.
To go through it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
What scares me is on the 92,000 for alternate, well, we should just look at alternate one at this point.
correct, yeah. Yeah, I'm okay with alternate one.
Okay. That one's okay.
That's just me, though.
So, Mr. Chair, so the metal wall panels deduct of 7,100 in that number, that's the deduct offered for removing that area once you enter the building?
Yeah, what it does, it deletes the soffit panels on the exterior canopy, and the remainder of that alternate, the linear metal panel, which would be substituted, would come back as a credit from the acoustical guy, which is offset by a higher dollar material. Thus, you saw the ad from them at 56,000.
Mm-hmm.
Anything else? So I was under the impression that you were looking for more like the combine them.
Well, I was just trying to figure out what the end result was gonna be if somebody already did the math. I just hadn't done the math.
Yeah.
So,
The problem where I was going with this is alternate two, if I heard Evan right, we take that one and he's not really recommending that one, correct? For the lifetime of the building?
Yeah, I just think, you know, again, for the long term of the building, you know, there's, and I do have samples, of course, and we probably don't want to get into the weeds on that item right now, but just, you're all familiar with a CMU. The exterior CMU is more dense, but definitely still a cast concrete product. For a government center, lifetime of the building, I think that would be one. We had that as a deduct because we felt base bid, the way it was with the natural stone, was the way to go for this type of building. So I would recommend personally not accepting alternate two. And then alternate number one is really strictly up to you guys if you think that, I do think that there, obviously we did include that as an alternate because we felt it was very valid. It'd be more consistent through there, but we also, of course, at that time, we don't know where numbers are gonna land. We want to give you maximum flexibility, of course, so.
So with that said, if we didn't take alternate number two, then it would jump up to 180,000,
just for the first two.
Well,
We still gotta
for
get
the
through
rest of them, it'd be 170,000.
Yeah, I see what you're saying, yeah.
Yeah.
And just for clarity, two is in base bid right now, so if you didn't accept it, it's not a cost add, it's just not in the savings. Yep.
Wishes to move on to alternate three?
I would like to come back to alternate one and see where we land on the other
Okay.
ones.
Okay.
That's just my side.
Yep.
Alternate three to upgrade those counters with a little bit of harder glass for 10,500.
I want to mention, Mr. Chair, excuse me, is that the plan for the new building is you wouldn't have those security gates come down. So I think we thought we probably ought to boost up the glass quality because not having those retractable gates. So
Just adding to what Monty said, that was, hate to put you on the spot, but that's probably 25,000 a gate, something like that. Is that fair?
Yeah.
So there was those gates at each one of them to provide closure in the
Motorized
evenings
gates,
or
yeah.
when needed. So this ad represents a significant cost savings to when we had the coiling gates on it. But as Monty said, it was kind of a trade-off. So we forego the gates and then upgrade the glass. So the 10 represents an add, but what we did for the building was probably pull 70,000-ish out of the estimates, so.
Do a thumbs up on that
Yep.
one.
I'm
I
okay with
agree.
that too.
Blazing, yes. I mean, yep.
Alternate A4, that pergola on the south side, once again, and Evan said that could be added in at any time down the line, so it's on the south side of the building.
We can always do that at a later date.
Yep.
Alternate A5 was to provide the framed walls up on second floor. Like Evan said, the partition's off, potentially for future, there is some savings there if, on a little bit on the furniture, forthcoming furniture side of things down the line. But at the same time too, if the space changes, you will end up having to potentially remove those walls if it intrudes into those spaces, so.
Yeah, I would vote for keeping the flexibility to move walls if you need to, right, rather than building fixed walls upstairs, the fewest possible, yeah.
That was always our intention.
Keep it flexible,
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
Alternate A6 that provide formed concrete foundation walls. We have no problem with it. There's an additional savings of $47,000 to provide those in lieu of the double CMU walls.
I think it's a deduct. I would be in for that.
Yep. It's $48,000 one.
That's that's an okay.
Alternate P1, the cost for not using PEX piping. Like I said, we've seen more and more PEX piping being used. If you want to just go with a strictly copper system on the interior side of things, it would be an additional $17,260.
So on the commercial jobs that I've been on, they've all used PEX now. They've completely changed and switched. I guess,
What's the warranty difference? Anything?
I don't know if you're going to get an actual warranty outside of what you would typically get out of the contractor side of things. As far as the copper pipe versus the PEX pipe, I don't know if one has a warranty or not, but
Pete, what are you seeing nowadays?
we're seeing a combination of both depending on the areas. More times than not, the large scale pipe, PEX doesn't really fit the bill on. I'm talking
Right.
inch plus, anything over an inch. We're seeing a lot of half inch, 3/4 inch runouts happening in PEX. And I have no problem with it. I have it in my own house.
So they're still using combination then, what you're saying?
And my guess is that's probably how they bid this project as a combination.
Sorry,
They probably bid this one as a combination, and that $17,000 ad would be to go all copper.
I don't know if it would be all of it. If you looked at the bid tab of where those, it was up to the contractor discretion, the original bid tab, and that one did kind of go all over the map, and that's why I'm thinking that this contractor is using it somewhat more limited. Let me quick jump to that to kind of give you a little bit of the range on it, but it went from $17,260 all the way up to $85,720. So some contractors were using it more extensively than others, so.
I think if it's good, we don't add it. We don't add to go copper. That's just my side.
I have the PEX in my house.
All new construction houses are PEX.
Yeah.
Yeah, but like Pete said, it's just a matter of the water lines, when they have to be over an inch. That's where they went copper. And then when it downsized to 3/4 to half is when they went to PEX. So that's the difference.
And this one was worded a little bit differently, so it's for not using it. So basically, if you don't accept that alternate, you include the PEX into the project. The next one is we talked snow melt here. The snow melt $107,400. That puts snow melt at your front entrance and those set of stairs sidewalk coming off the east side of the steps.
I would definitely vote for that. Jeff will thank you. You know, and yeah, it's always an issue of slips and falls in the winter. Not employees, but the public, and
Well,
anything we can do to help reduce slips and falls is a good investment.
MCIT premiums then. Good thing for our MCIT premiums then.
Yeah,
Yeah, to the extent you can, eliminate because those become more injuries, or if it's a public, there's oftentimes a medical cost, associated with that. So
It'll also save on the concrete because of all the salt that is around this joint.
that's a good point, right? Yeah. So that one's okay.
And then I'm not sure if we need to go back to those roof screens or not. And then, like I said, the temp control is basically zero. You've got the low bid contractor already in that with the system you currently have in place in your other facilities.
There again, we can wait on that.
yeah.
There again, we could wait on that decision.
So it sounds like, right, so that, the screens, that's off the table. So it looks like the last thing that's left is Alt 2, the stone veneer versus the natural stone.
Well, we got alternate one, because I don't think we came to a consensus on that.
Oh, I'm sorry, I thought there was agreement on one.
We didn't pass this either.
No, for the PEX, I'm fine with not taking that alternate.
That was my impression too.
Here's Alt 1, just you. Sorry, I didn't print additional copies, but
So right now, I'm hearing, correct me if I'm wrong, there's consensus on Alt 3, Alt 6, and Alt H1.
Correct. That's what I have.
That's what I got.
I
So
got you.
what remains then is this discussion and consensus on Alt 1 and Alt 2.
So, Pete, what's like life expectancy of the stone, do you think, with the deduct of that 92,000?
you know, the real stone, there's plenty of examples around of a lot of these old historic buildings, so you can kind of see where that is at. Very nice product. The masonry units, depending upon some of the sprinkler systems and stuff over time, we have seen on other projects where it has hit it. It's not to say that both weren't going to need some type of upkeep and ongoing, but, you know, you go back to some of these real historic buildings that have stone, and you've seen where some of these are still sitting, some of these old churches and things, so. Both of them would still have the effects if you layered thick chloride on them or snow melt salt and didn't do anything with that. You know, in those entrances and stuff, you see a lot of older buildings where those are eroded over time, so neither one is 100% foolproof, but the stone has some inherent qualities.
If it was your building,
Either way, I would probably go with the stone, but either way, and I tell a lot of places that we work, make sure you maintain those areas that are coming up to your doorways. Recommend additional power washing every spring to get rid of those sidewalk melt salts and upkeep on that. We see so much erosion at these front entrances of these buildings because spring comes and we don't do anything in the sidewalk and the stone starts to show its age real quick. So, building like this, knowing it's going to be here for the length of time that it is, I would potentially stay with the stone then myself.
Either way, we have to maintain the upkeep, do the upkeep every year regardless of what we pick.
Should be done.
To me, I would go do with the stone and get rid of the
For
92,000.
clarification, that's already in the bid. It's
Yeah.
a deduct.
The stone
if
is
you go to-
currently in the price. Yep.
It's cheaper if you use the veneer, the artificial product, right? Yeah. So that's the question. Keep it with the natural stone in the base bid, or go with the reduction for the fabricated product, right?
So if I'm hearing correct, the stone itself has a longer longevity than the veneer would.
I would
As
tend
long
to
as the
believe so.
upkeep is done.
I'd vote to stay with the stone.
Yeah.
So you're down to alt one then.
So the drawing that was passed before you had the two versions. The one you'll see the kind of a linear line through the three areas, and then the other has the linear plank, a drywall, which has got kind of a stipple pattern, and then a regular suspended ceiling grid in the next part, so you can kind of see that between the two, just a clarity on the areas that we're talking about and why, you know, we were recommending one versus the other, so.
Basically, if we accept this, it goes to 119,000 for alternate ads. If we don't, it's 70.
Yeah, I agree with your math. 119,399.
Wishes?
So this is what it is right now. This is with the hard ceiling, and then just this outside, the planking outside. And then suspended ceiling.
I can live with either, but I would prefer the ad. But I can live with it.
I'm sorry.
I can live with either, but I prefer the ad.
And this is something we could also change though down the process too, correct? I mean,
Yes.
We can add it in, but we can always take it away through the process.
Yeah.
I would just say, you know, when they approve the shop drawings and get the material through, you know, that's
Gotcha.
about the time, not
I
like,
gotcha.
not like before
I
it goes in,
understand.
but we'd have a material order time and approval time. So up until then, true. And then after that, we'd have some challenges, so.
Okay.
Is there sufficient consensus to keep alt one?
I'm in the same boat as Commissioner Johnson.
I have no preference really at this point.
Me either.
I don't either.
What's the timing if we choose, is there something in between this, or would you recommend one or the other?
I think the in-between might be running that plank through the vestibule part and then running the regular tile up and through that front part. You know, there's kind of three distinct areas. You know, that would probably be,
The problem I've seen with the vestibules, when you open the door and it's windy out, them tiles push up.
right, yeah. And that's why we definitely want to switch something in that vestibule area, correct? Yeah, if it's not heavy enough or if it's just a regular suspended product, they can clip down and different things, but it's really not the way to go for a vestibule, so.
I can see it in the vestibule, you know, in two of them, but into the main corridor there. I don't need that wood planking in that corridor.
Well, why don't we come back to that one after? They can maybe get a number just for the vestibule.
We could do that.
Yeah. I don't know.
So just to recap, then, we were looking at alternate 3, alternate 6, and alternate H1. Is I correct on that, Monty?
Yes. 3, 6, H1. Yep. So base bid plus those three alts.
And Monty, that includes the one, that would push it to 119.
No, that would be at 70 grand.
Yep. 69,974 is the ad. 69,974 is the ad.
I know we have to make a decision, but I have to rely on you guys on some of this.
Yeah, I got
I'll just add on the ice melt, that was a very strong preference on Jeff's side. Obviously, is to maintain, they salt the heck out of everything to maintain some safety. I think you're seeing deterioration because of all that salt in your course facility building, for example. This would be the front walk to the sidewalk is the main public area. Work with a lot of counties. That slip fall issue is huge. Ice melts aren't perfect because in the winter, when you get a fair amount of snow on there, some of it evaporates, but some of it runs off. So people kind of have examples of both. You know, sometimes you're very successful, and sometimes you got to make sure that it has a place to go. But at the end of the day, if Jeff were here, he would strongly recommend including that for safety. I do think that I've seen many times where there is slip fall. That's very much more costly, put it that way. The overtime. So the system itself is a separate boiler. It's not part of the rest of boilers. It's a boiler and the piping system to run that independent ice melt. So that's the bulk of the cost. I mean, the other items that you're working with there, that's the main ad. I mean, that's the one that's driving the cost, and that's got to be put in. I mean, that's got to be decided a little earlier than others, because that'll be piping going in under slabs in a boiler that needs to be ordered. So
I'm good with that one.
I think that in itself will save on deterioration by not adding as much salt as we have to add.
Saturate the sidewalk with salt now. Yeah, it kills everything. So, Mr. Chair, I know Commissioner Heinen has a time constraint. I think we're looking at this point for a motion to accept the base, correct me if I'm wrong, Pete, the base bid plus all three, all six, and all each one, those three. And again, the change in cost is an additional $69,974. Your new bottom line total, $24,238,319.33. That's the bottom line.
Can you do that one more time?
$24,238,318.33. Again, the increase is $69,974 over the base bid. That is the motion.
I'm good with that, Mr. Chair.
Need a motion?
I'll
I'll
second.
make the motion.
Motion been made and seconded to accept the bid of $24,238,319
And 33 cents.
and 33 cents. Any discussion? Comments?
Mr. Chair.
Yeah.
I will be voting for accepting the bids because the funding mechanism's already been put in place. The building is going to happen, and at this point, if I voted against it, I would be saying I want to bid and potentially spend more money. So that's where I'm at, so I will be supporting this.
Mr. Chair, if I could just have you please repeat the total. I think we are off $1, but I just want to make sure we're both all clear on it.
$24,238,319 and 33 cents.
I have 318.
318.
Calculate it again. 69,974 added to 24,168,345.33. 24,238,319.33.
Okay.
19,
It's
thank you.
written down wrong.
Okay.
24,238,319.33.
Any other discussion? I will be voting no because I think the people spoke, they wanted to vote on this. And we didn't hear them. We had a lot of comments that, this was done at the first meeting we had in Foley, that they said, why are we here? Because you guys have already decided. I think now they feel that way more than ever. I think there's a lot of ifs out there that we're not looking at. I think the public does not want this. I can't find 10 people that tell me we should build this. So I think that we owe it to the public after every one of us sat up here at all three of the meetings and said we'd let it come to a vote. I don't believe that just because it's $4 million or whatever, 5 million in savings, that we can't guarantee it's going to be that much more. History says it will be more,
but we're not in the same time as history as what we were maybe 5 years ago. So I think that, I just think that it's a bad deal for the county to put this face on what we just did, to tell them to go out and get the petitions, and we'll put it to a vote, and then come back through the back door and get this kind of a deal so it can be built. I think the people would rather have their say and pay more money down the road.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
is it, I mean, can we agree that we tried that?
What?
Did we not make a motion last meeting to do that? I remember making that motion
To,
to put it to the vote,
right,
and you seconded it, and it failed, right?
right,
So we're at this point
right.
to where the building funding mechanism is there. That's why I'm supporting it.
Yeah, I won't support it because, 3 board members are gonna say that we should spend 25 million in this county to build a new government center, and I don't think that's right. Well, you got a comment, Mary? Okay.
Yeah, the funding mechanism just came up. That wasn't, transparency. This was just brought up at the meeting when we got the signatures together. After that, then it was the new funding mechanism, okay? And I feel like even when we're talking now, and they just presented this, and you guys were talking about gates and about safety of your own workers, our government workers here, the safety of the public. What I'm understanding is with these gates, which I call crash gates, because I know a little bit about them, that would be the safest thing for the county. You made decisions just right now where nobody is like expertise on the subject. If, let's say Benton County, God forbid, had an active shooter in our new building, crash gates are the best thing. Isolates how many people get hurt. And now we're going to glass that, you know, a low caliber gun can not puncture it, but a high caliber gun could. You guys made decisions just now. I just sat here and listened, and nobody's expertise. You didn't give your time to research it and just push this project ahead, push it ahead, and you're not listening to the taxpayers of this county, the voters. There was many more signatures that we had out there, and we just didn't get them in because we had way more than what we were told. You guys weren't gonna go ahead with this if we had enough on the petition. It's very disappointing, and it's very disappointing that the research, even with what you decided today, wasn't, hey, we should look into this. Maybe we need to have another meeting down the road. We're being transparent here. Think about the safety of everybody, about anybody that comes into that new courthouse. Crash gates are a real good project to have in a government center. It isolates a shooter if that ever were to happen. Protective glass, like what you guys just suggested, I'm disappointed in this. I'm disappointed in this whole process. Why didn't you put this on the election, the last election, and let everybody vote on it? You've been kicking this down the road, you said, for 20 years now. I'm just highly disappointed. I'm sorry, but that's how I feel.
Go ahead, Mr. Lewandowski.
Mr. Chairman, the court facility building that was built years ago. I talked recently to an individual that was on what they call the Citizens Advisory Board. Similar situation you have here. The public didn't want it. And at the public hearing for that one, the board did hear the public. Yeah, they still had the funding mechanism and they wanted to go ahead with it. And the board had the power, they had the power to do it under the HRA that was jammed down their throats. But you know what that board did? They got the public involved with an advisory board. They slowed things down. They didn't put the mahogany on the walls that some of the judges wanted for reverence, okay? And they saved millions of dollars. I don't have the exact figures, but I would suggest each and every one of you talk to Mr. Arlen Zeppelt, get his opinion on what happened then and what was done by the board and how much the county appreciated getting the public involved on the advisory board. And I believe it was about the same stage in the process. Maybe it was after the public hearing coming up. I'm still struggling to understand what the public hearing is about in July, because you guys have the train coming down the track already. And so I would just ask you, Mr. Chairman, to please consider a citizens advisory board.
nominate 1 or 2 citizens from each one of your districts, get an opinion, go through what the lady over here just suggested, maybe doing some research into some of these projects. Your active shooters coming in aren't coming in with low caliber guns, they're gonna come in with a high caliber weapon, all right? That's what history shows. So if you're gonna put this expensive glass in to stop a low caliber gun, okay, money well spent. Please consider the advisory board before this goes any further. At least give the public something. If you don't call for a vote, give the public something. Thank you.
These crash gates, guns go through too.
Pardon?
These crash gates, they're not complete crash gates. There's holes through them, correct?
Correct, and they isolate.
They isolate,
people.
yeah.
Isolate that person, so they're not running around the whole courthouse. And isolate just that area of what is happening at the time. You're saving lives by crash gates, yeah. It's a.
We didn't have crash gates in there, right?
You were talking about gates that came down.
Those were for the auditor, treasurer, all that stuff, right? DMV?
Mr. Chair, would it be fair to say, Mary Kay, I appreciate your disappointment. I'm very disappointed. These are all things that we talked about well before today. There's documentation in our cow minutes. Again, you people refuse to review what we've talked about for 2 years. You want to hone in on one specific item. I'd like to challenge anyone on this board, with the exception of Commissioner Benoit, because she wasn't here. We had these discussions when we met with these 2 individuals.
You said you would not, if we got the petition,
Yes, answer.
yeah. You
I
guys-
said what?
I sent you the article.
What did you say about if we got the numbers?
I'm pretty certain what I said it would be likely put on the 26th ballot. That's what I said. Now, if you can show me in the records and the minutes and the ads that I said I would do that, then let's have that conversation. By the way, Mr. Chair, last I checked, I didn't know that this was a public comment time again. Here we're gonna go
I
back
had
and
the
forth.
discussion with Monty and its commission. It's
So-
totally the board chair's
I
decision.
understand, so you're allowing that,
But-
obviously.
Mr. Chair, I just wanted to mention, I know Commissioner Heinen needs to leave at 10 for, I believe it's Career Solutions. I believe Career Solutions. So perhaps what we could do is you could act on this motion at hand and then hear from Jessica. And if there's time left after you've heard from her, then there's more time for folks in the audience to talk. But again, in respect for Commissioner Benoit and Heinen and their schedule this morning, perhaps if we could move through this agenda item, and then if there's time left over, then you could have more public commentary.
Mr. Chair, call the question.
All right. You want to do a roll call, Beth?
Commissioner Benoit,
Yes.
Commissioner Heinen,
Aye.
Commissioner Pop,
No.
Commissioner Johnson.
Aye.
Commissioner Kapinski.
Aye.
Thank
Oh, thank you, sir. So Jessica Green is with us from Northland Securities to talk about the type of debt and the term of debt. And you have in your packet, I believe, 15, 20, 25, and 30. And Jessica, are you with us?
I am. Can you hear me okay?
We hear you just fine. Thank you for joining us virtually. So Jessica, I will just turn it over to you.
Sounds great. I know I've got limited time here, so I will try to get through this pretty quickly. So we have talked about sort of the issuing mechanism previously, and what we've sort of kind of zeroed in on was the HRA lease revenue bond option. The county has issued HRA lease revenue bonds in the past. This was back in '94, and then I believe it was in 2004 or 5 where those bonds were refunded. And then you may recall back at the June 10th meeting, we had kind of touched on HRA and EDA lease revenue bonds are very similar. The county, of course, enjoys the fact that you have an HRA and an EDA, so you can issue in any case. And then there's another nuance to the lease revenue bond option, which is also, it's known as certificates of participation. We also touched on that on June 10th. And we've been zeroing in on these HRA lease revenue bonds because the county has utilized this format of issuing in the past. Now that we've had some opportunity to go back and look at what some of those initial findings were back in 1994, we've had some extensive conversations with bond counsel and looking at some of the procedural steps that need to occur if we're going to sort of continue down the path of HRA lease revenue bonds. So one, with the HRA bonds, there's a redevelopment plan that needs to be drafted, and that needs to go before the Planning Commission. So once it makes a stop at the Planning Commission, and this isn't related to the issuance of the bonds, it's related to the land use. So there's, again, this redevelopment plan that makes a stop at the planning commission. From there, it needs the local municipality's blessing, and then you have your public hearing on that redevelopment plan. And again, not related to the issuance of bonds, it's related to land use. Knowing that, and some things can happen sort of continuously as we're moving along, but we do need to kind of have one step of the process sort of taken care of. So planning commission first, then a stop at the local municipality, and then again, we have that hearing. And then after that, you're issuing bonds. So some of the differences here. HRA lease revenue bonds, again, requires a stop at the planning commission. The EDA, because it's not a redevelopment project, those do not require a stop at the planning commission. Still requires local municipality and then to hold the hearing on an economic development area as opposed to a redevelopment area when it comes to the HRA bonds. Now with certificates of participation, which also function as a lease, the lease is simply with the trustee rather than with the EDA or the HRA. There is no planning commission that is required, and because we're not establishing a redevelopment or an economic development area, there is no public hearing required. So, given the fact that we're, of course, awarding the bids here and then moving ahead to try to keep in line with where we believe construction is going to start and when you will need proceeds, in our conversations with bond counsel, the fastest we can move here is with certificates of participation, because again, it eliminates the need for the planning commission to act on land use and determine that it's in harmony with the overall development of the county. So with that, if we were to consider HRA lease revenue bonds, you're likely going to be selling bonds in late September, which then gets you proceeds in late October. If we do the EDA lease revenue route, we're probably into early September, which then provides those proceeds in early October. If we were to act on certificates of participation, we would then be looking at issuing bonds on, I believe it's the, you're meeting on the 15th of August. Let me just go back to my notes here. Apologies, I'm working off of two separate computers. 18th, excuse me, of August, which then gets you proceeds on the 11th of September. So to recap, the quickest option is the certificates of participation. The longest option is those HRA lease revenue bonds. And again, it's because of all these different procedural steps that is found under the redevelopment authority. So in terms of the interest rate on the bonds, it's the same. Again, it's all a lease sort of arrangement between the county and then whichever sort of counterparty that we have involved, whether that's HRA, EDA, or the trustee. So we don't have any concerns here of selling the bonds, marketing the bonds, given the size and likely the term that the county may want to proceed with. We think that these will be well accepted by the market regardless of the, again, the mechanism, whether that's HRA, EDA, or certificates of participation. So before we get into desired term, I'm going to pause there and ask for any questions that I can answer about the different options.
Questions?
Do all of these have the same term? Like we could decide on a 15, 20, 25 year or 30 year?
Yep, that's correct.
Okay.
Mr. Chair, Jessica, do they all have the option of refinance?
They do, yep. So as we get closer to the timing of issuance, we'll kind of take a look at what those market conditions are. But I would say that we'd put a call date in the bonds regardless of what type of lease structure between 7 and 8 years. And the reason that we wanted to bring this forward to you today is because the county will be putting in a certain amount of cash to reduce the size of the bonds. We want to make sure that you're getting proceeds when you want them, given the fact that you've got a couple of $1 million that you're going to be putting in, but given the magnitude of the project, of course, those dollars are going to be out the door pretty quickly. So we just want to be transparent in providing that information related to the timing of when proceeds would be delivered.
So evidently the first option we need to decide is which one of the three options.
Mr. Chair, just for clarification, Jessica, really, we're talking about the earliest proceeds would come in first part of September with the COP.
Correct.
And then the second option would be late September, early October.
Yep,
And the third option, late October.
correct.
And the HRA was late October, correct?
Correct. And that's due to some of those additional procedural steps that would need to happen prior to getting to the point of the HRA holding the public hearing. Because certificates of participation do not require a hearing, because again, we're not establishing a redevelopment area or an economic development area, you're able to proceed much quicker.
Mr. Chair, then I guess it's discussion over whether or not you want to dip into the county funds first or second or third, because the longer you wait, the higher chances you're going to spend the 2 million in cash first, which maybe isn't a bad thing. I'm just,
Right.
if we wait with the HRA process and not get dollars until late October, we for sure will have billings before then.
Correct, but if we do the HRA like we told the residents, you know, that was an option, we could also ask the planning commission for a special meeting and then get it at the Foley Council too at a certain point, right?
Well,
And then that would speed it up.
I think schedule-wise, Foley Council's got a meeting coming up July 8th, I believe, and Planning Commission the 10th. So there's enough notice time today.
And then if we do the HRA, what would that do to, excuse me, what would that do to our process with the HRA? Would that still leave us at end of October?
So the issue is that the planning commission needs to take action before the
Yep.
local municipality can take action.
Correct.
Okay.
Yep.
So if we've got a planning commission meeting on the 10th, and of course you could probably schedule something earlier if you needed to, then the next opportunity for the local municipality to take up action would be July 8th. And that assumes that we can get the planning commission together prior to the 8th, of course. If we do wait until the county planning commission meets on the 10th, then our next opportunity, I would believe,
Yeah.
for
Be in August.
Yeah.
First Tuesday in August.
Yeah, because if we don't have, so let's just say that we can't get the city to act on the 8th. The next opportunity then would be the 22nd. Then we would need to notice for the hearing for the HRA, which would push into August.
Gotcha.
And then about a month later is when you're holding your actual
Gotcha.
bond sale, and then 4 weeks later, you've got proceeds.
Okay.
Couldn't you get a special meeting before then?
I'm sure they could. I don't know if there's enough notice time, though. Is it 3-day notice, Monty, on special planning commission meeting? I would imagine it's a 3-day notice.
Jessica, question for you. So, the planning commission action, is it just a regular action or is it a public hearing?
The planning commission action is simply just taking action on the land use and making sure that it's in harmony with the development plan for the county. The public hearing is at the HRA. So I believe, and I could be wrong about the planning commission, but I believe that the 3-day notice is what is required.
Then, yeah, then if it's not a public hearing, then 3 days is applicable.
We need a decision.
And I'm just speaking because I didn't vote for the HRA. But I think staying that route would be the way to go.
I would have to agree, because we did say that we could do the HRA route. We've never talked about the other two options. It's just a matter of time frame.
Yep. But I do think we should get a special meeting together.
Mr. Chair, and I don't mean to correct you necessarily, Commissioner Heinen, but I believe we talked about many options at the beginning of this process.
Correct, and
These were all one of them.
we did talk about many options, and I agree with you, but we specifically said HRA.
Yeah, absolutely.
In
That was the
general.
latest action, absolutely.
We didn't really elaborate on the other two options. But I am open to suggestions, Commissioner Johnson.
Mr. Chair, Jessica, is there a typical action that happens in this situation?
I wouldn't say there's a typical sort of method. Again, if we're looking to move things along quickly, certificates of participation is your best option. The county, though, has utilized HRA lease revenue bonds in the past, but because this particular property is land that was most recently, in the last couple of years, acquired by the county, that's why we have to go back and sort of redo the findings that were done back in '94. Otherwise, the existing findings would be fine, but again, we're looking at some different property here, so that's kind of the crux of it.
I really, Commissioner Johnson, I believe it'd really be up to you if you really wanted to bring it to the planning commission.
Well, I mean, I guess that's this board's decision to do in direction.
Correct, I'm just looking for your opinion.
In this case, I'd have to call a special meeting because our June 26th meeting was canceled, so it would be either a special meeting or wait till the 10th, which would then push the city meeting off a few weeks. I wasn't under the understanding that the planning commission had to see it first, so that changes the schedule a little bit.
Mr. Chair? Would it behoove us to ask the question to Pete on how this affects their side?
I think schedule-wise, we're still gonna maintain with the schedule that we currently put in the specifications, where we still potentially could start, especially if you're gonna use some money in-house. You're gonna have a few contractors submitting some mobilization bond costs, but for the most part, there'll be the excavator starting up, and we'll set up a billing date where the work takes place, and then, of course, 30 days later, 35 days later, payment is made, and we'll work those dates out with Christine and Monty. But with that being said, if we don't start till later part of July, your first billing wouldn't be due till the end of August, which would allow then sometime in September for payment.
Okay.
And it's not like every contractor there will be working day one, so it will be a throttle up.
At this point, I would support the HRA, but I won't support the rest.
I have mixed feelings. And the only reason I say that is because now we're adding 3 meetings, which is an extra cost, which is minimal. I get it, but it's still an extra cost. And if we're moving forward with this, why add those extra costs?
I think it goes back to, again, that you're telling the public, well, we decided this, and now we're gonna change to this.
Monty, what's the extra cost for a special,
But you can't, commissioners can't get paid for a special meeting.
I realize that, but planning board,
Oh,
they do.
It'd just be the per diem times 8 members.
About $500 plus mileage.
So that's an extra $600 roughly, just for a special meeting.
right. Minimal on $25 million project.
I'm okay with the HRA.
I'm okay with the HRA too. I know it's gonna postpone it a little bit, but that's what we did say. And I'll stick to that.
Yeah.
Even though it's gonna cost us a little extra money.
Okay,
I'm good with the HRA.
We'll just try to get this through as quickly as possible though, with special meetings and everything. Need a motion?
I would suggest you also have some discussion about term So as Jessica starts working on all the related legal documents, it'd be good to know. Is that correct, Jessica? Or am I jumping ahead of things?
Nope, that's perfect.
Yeah.
So we have, as Monty mentioned, you do have, I believe in your packets, 15-year, a 20-year, a 25, and what we call 30. It's 29 years actually, because it needs to be paid within 30 years of issuance. So it comes down to 29 principal payments. So in very broad strokes, this is oversimplifying, but every 5 years that we add to the term, you're looking at about an additional $4 million in interest. That assumes that the bonds are outstanding for the entirety of the term. However, it assumes that you're not going to refinance these bonds, which I'll tell you that most cities, most counties that do end up issuing lease revenue bonds ultimately end up refinancing them. Again, there's always the chance that market conditions don't exist where it makes sense for savings to do it, but given the length of time that the bonds are outstanding, what history has shown us with interest rates is that there likely would be that opportunity. So in terms of the payment, obviously the shorter the term, the higher the annual debt service payment, the longer the term, the lower the debt service payment. So we've generally, historically, we've been sort of focusing on a 20 and a 25-year term. But we can certainly, again, look to something shorter, look to something longer. But I'll pause there as I do know that you have those debt runs in front of you. And let me know if you have any questions.
I guess, Monty, do you have, what percent of the levy would that, each one would be?
Obviously, it varies with the term. I guess maybe you could, give me a sense of which one you're thinking of.
Well, I think I'd like to know from, there's a substantial savings on the 15, but that's $2 million on the county's property level.
Yeah.
I'd like to know what that does to the levy for the next 15 years versus 20 years and 25 years.
Uh-huh. Well, I would need a little time to sort of crank some numbers, Mr. Chair. Looks like so I'm looking at the 20 year. So that I just picked that first year of levy, principal and interest. So it'd be about an 8% levy increase for the 20. And again, I just picked that first number. Let's see. I didn't think the 15 was in serious consideration, so I didn't. Let's see. Let's go with the 8. And then the 25 drops down to about a 7% levy increase. So,
25.
So again, the 20 is about an 8, and then the 25 is about a 7. About a 7.
So you're looking at a 1% decrease per 5 years, basically.
That's how it's kind of working out, yeah.
So like
Yeah.
a 30-year would be
Yeah.
roughly 6%.
1, 5, 2, 6, 3, 8, 5.
What's shocking is you go from a 20 to a 30 and it's an extra $8 million in interest.
I had that discussion last night with
Yeah.
somebody that does this, and virtually, he said that that's a lot of money on the counties to go to 25 to 30 for your payment. And plus, he said you don't figure in the refinancing that'll probably take place in there, which is more than, he's been and done this for some time. So that there will be refinancing opportunities if this is the route you're gonna go. And the savings could be even greater than what is expressed today.
Yep.
So,
Commissioner, if it's helpful in taking one off the table, it's not common to see these bonds over 15 years. Obviously, if that's palatable for the board, it saves you money and interest. But given the life of the asset that's being financed,
Right.
15 years is pretty uncommon.
right. Yeah, 15 years,
Yeah.
I think is undoable to the taxpayers. I mean, the whole works is undoable, but 15 years is very undoable.
Mr. Chair, to that point, I'll bring it up again, and I know I'm in the minority, and I'm in the minority with my four peers here, but I talked about the 15-year at the very beginning of this process, and on 30 million, it was a $6 million savings in interest. Again, from a 20 to a 15 is about a $4 million savings. I understand your point, though. It is a higher payment. I get that. I'm just trying to express the additional interest costs that will be paid.
And you've always been in that. But not everybody can afford
Yeah, and I
a
understand
higher
that. Yep,
tax break.
I understand that, too.
Go ahead, Mr. Deppa.
So what we're saying is that there's a bond got approved for 24 million some dollars. Is that correct?
Mr. Chair, it would be 22 if using that math, because there's gonna be cash put towards it.
Okay, so to me, it's another deception to the taxpayers because you gotta pay all this interest on it. That information should have been brought out, how much it's actually, what the actual dollar value cost is at the end. It's not 22 or 24. After 30 years, you tack on that interest, you got a project of over $30-some million. That's wrong.
Well, this is,
That's just, Jared, just let me talk. Okay, am I right or wrong? Yes or no? It's gonna cost more with the interest because the county does not have the money.
you're 100% right. It's no different than buying a house. Do you calculate what that house really costs or a car at the end of it? I think people would be very frightful of that.
I would say that they would have a big down payment on a house and not borrow that money. That's how I do my, calculations and math in my business.
So when you brought that up, I brought that up to the board about putting together a savings plan. And I got ridiculed for that.
Well, the savings plan should have been put in check before, but it's not what happened before, it's what's happening now. And now, it's not a $24 million project, it's gonna probably be closer to, do the math on 30 years and add up the interest and tell everybody what it's gonna actually cost. That's the bottom line, that's where I'm at. It's not 24 million. We're gonna have to pay that interest and your taxes are gonna continue to go up every year because of that interest.
Well,
That's above and beyond.
Mr. Chair,
yeah.
I've got to leave in 4 minutes. So you can either keep having this conversation now, or if we need to take action, there's two of us that have to leave, and then it'll be on you three to take the action.
I mean,
Now I'm down to 3 minutes, because I do have to leave. Monty, what was the percentage on a 15-year loan?
Percent like levy increase?
Yes.
Okay, let's see here. 2,120,439 divided by 24,931, 859, 8.5.
8.5?
Right, yeah. I'm redoing my numbers for you, so that's what I was in the process of doing.
It's not much of a
8.5.
difference between 15 to 20.
Okay.
If
It's a
20
half
was
per-
at-
I'm gonna
It's a half
recalculate my
percent, but
numbers.
it's 4
so-
million in interest.
It's 4 million in interest, though, correct.
Monty, if it's helpful to you, the impact to the county's tax rate would be just shy of 4% on a 15-year term, so 3.972.
Thanks, Jessica, yeah.
It was a 20-year term, we're at 3.34%. 25 is 2.996, and 30 is 2.829.
But again, they're all subjected to refinance.
Yeah.
But there's no guarantees, that's what I was told last.
But there is a guarantee you save 4 million in interest.
Correct.
Payments higher.
Payments higher, but
I'm in that 20-year.
I'm stuck on the 20. I won't do the 2.1 million in levied dollars.
Okay, we got two of them at 20. I'm fine with 15 or 20, either way. 20 is just fine with me too.
I can live with the 20, I'd prefer the 15.
Fair enough.
I'm good with either 15 or 20.
It's only a 0.5% difference, so from 15 to 20, we save $4 million.
Mr. Chair, I'm going to move for a 15-year.
Motion dies for lack of second.
Mr. Chair, I'll move for a 20-year.
I'll second that. Roll call, Beth?
Commissioner Benoit,
Aye.
Commissioner Heinen,
Aye.
Commissioner Pop,
Aye.
Commissioner Johnson,
Aye.
Commissioner Kapinski.
Aye.
Sorry, Mr. Chair. I have-
That's all the business we have before you, Mr. Chair, so.
Okay. One more comment from Mike.
Look this in the record, from the March 18th meeting last year. Lots of data, that at the end of the day, the results need to be presented to the public and have our taxpayer decide. Thank you.
Okay.
Mr. Chair, just so it's also in the record that at the last meeting, I also commented, said that from my opinion, this was a very material change when the bids were opened. So people can hash that out how they will. I just want to make sure that that's clear too. There's multiple other records that could be included. Multiple minutes, multiple meetings, and it all needs to get put together.
Okay.
I just want to thank the board for everything you've done, because I think you've been very transparent. And I think there's a lot of people that are going to agree with the decision you made. I think us taxpayers of Benton County, and, no, none of us like to pay more taxes, but I think you have served us well. I've been a resident for 43 years watching this all, and I think you guys have made a very prudent decision.
Thank you.
Thank you.
One more and then we're done.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to mention that, when we first come out about bonds or whatever it is, to come through the back door with this other bond, and you guys can say that you can't come back through the, back door or whatever. Mr. Headley's the one who presented it, said that it would go to a people's vote, those were the words out of his mouth, that it would go to a vote, and he had the petition, you get this petition signed with these votes, the people went out, they spoke, they got it, all of a sudden they come to the next meeting, that's totally off the board and it's thrown under the table, that's dishonest, that's the way I see it, and you deceive the public.
I probably agree with you 100%.
Put all the apples on the table right from the beginning, don't bring a cart at the end with another option. And that comes from the lady that's not here today, that's on the screen, she could have came to here, and we're doing a video. Why? I think we're all adults, I think we can all agree to disagree, and I agree that this was done wrong.
Okay, thank you. With that, we're adjourned at 10:17.
Let's shut off.